Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gab-fest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Wreaths Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
And you're on the Tracer Rounds show, and we're on Military Broadcast Radio, where we're giving veterans a voice. And tonight's voice is to Sean Martin, who is the executive producer, lead singer, guitarist for The Quarantined. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you, Terry, for having me. It's really great to be here.
I'm really excited to talk to you about your military service and about your band. So can you tell us, I know you're in the Army. Can you tell us just a little bit about how long you're in, maybe what your job was, maybe some of your deployments, if you're, just whatever you'd like to tell us around your military service?
Sure. So I signed up for a 18X contract, which was the a designation for the fast track into special forces, but you had to get through infantry basic training and the AIT and airborne school. And they gave you an option after airborne school that you could either go directly to the special forces training in Fort Bragg, or you could go to a unit and deploy. And then after that deployment, option to go to Fort Bragg to complete your special forces training. And so after airborne school, I decided to go to the unit, the needs of the Army unit, and that the unit they sent me to was the 3rd of the 509th in Alaska.
Oh, wow.
And so I trained in Alaska, and all of my airborne and infantry, prime knowledge that we needed to have for deployment in Alaska. And we would go marching, and running through the snow was our best friend. We would sleep in it. We had, we're Arctic warriors. We had all these great, the best story that I have, not at least the fun story that I have is we went up to Fairbanks, Alaska one time for a training, and it was in the middle of winter, and it just so happened that on that day the wind was whipping really hard. And it got down to -55, which if you know that if you've been in -55, you know that you can't stay in -55 for any time longer than like 30 minutes, or else your chance of a cold weather injury goes up exponentially for every minute you stay past that point. Right. So they explained it all to us. And so we had to do firing exercises, like, like target acquisition exercises down a range where we would run up to a firing point and wait for the targets to come and try to shoot them. And so many people were shooting because the things were not working correctly because it was so cold. So all these targets were popping up when they weren't supposed to be popping up. People were shooting targets that weren't theirs because, who knows where the range is. It's a -55. The wind is whipping in your face. The snow is 6 feet high. These who knows what it is. So eventually, once we got through like the first like half of the platoon, and half of the scores that we got on this thing were totally not acceptable. They were like, you know what? Just go out there and try to shoot as many targets as you like to. Just go have some fun, guys. We'll try to do this qualification thing at some other time. And so that was like an entire day. That was just everybody sitting in like maybe a 6x10 warming hut and then getting yanked out into the cold for 5 minutes and coming back and be like, oh my God, it's so cold.
That's crazy. Because your weapon and your firing is not going to go right anyway. And it's going to be so hard you're going to be shivering trying to hit the target. I remember trying to hold a weapon when it was too hot. I can't imagine holding it when it's too cold. And you can't even get it to hit the right mark because you got the wind. So you've got to adjust for the wind. That's crazy. Right. There was all kinds of problems. And you touched on them exactly. The main one was shaking because it is that cold. And it does, as soon as you step out into it, you're all right. But then if you stay longer than just a few minutes, just waiting to go onto the range will make you start shaking just a little bit at least. Right. And then that affects your trajectory. So it made it all different kinds of difficult. But that's the kind of thing that that unit in Alaska does. And I really enjoyed it. It was, a lot of people would not necessarily look forward to the training because it was uncomfortable, right. but there was still a lot of aspects of the learning about the battle drills, the intelligence of how larger scale operations go, and watching all of the moving parts operate between each other and next to each other, and sometimes in spite of each other. It's really interesting to see all of the different moving parts of a combat operation. And we got to really get in depth because we were doing it all day, every day. And the unit and the Army was trying to see how fast they could stand up a unit and get it ready to go and be deployable. And they found out that it was a year and a half. Oh my goodness. That's a long time.
Yeah. It's they were trying to cut it down as much as they possibly could, but that was as quick as they could get it. That's from out of basic training to ready to deploy and boots on the ground.
Well, I guess that makes sense if you're talking about basic training and then you've got your job specialty training and then,
so once you're done with basic training. Yeah, once you're done with basic training and then ready to deploy is a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. It's intense, but it's really, to me, the infantry is the tip of the spear, and I wouldn't rather be anything else in the Army. I can't think of anything else that I would rather do or would rather have done. And at the same time, I also still have significant issues with how things were managed and how things were done when I was deployed. But there's a lot of fondness that I look back on in those times, especially in Alaska. And, I know that a lot of the unit, even though it was, sleeping out in the middle of the snow in the winter in your tiny little sleeping bag, it seems like just a walk in the wild side that you'd probably rather not take unless you absolutely had to. But after a while, you're kind of like, oh, we're gonna go out again. It's kind of fun, you know. At least it's not as boring as Garrison, you know.
Right. I mean, a lot of people would rather be out doing things versus sitting around a classroom or sitting around a unit, drill hall, whatever, just twiddling your thumbs basically, instead of out training and doing things that are meaningful or impactful, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
So how long were you in Alaska?
So I was in Alaska for, let's see, just from May 2005 to October of 2006. So, yeah.
So a year, a little over, you said May 05 to August of 06?
No, October of 06.
Oh, October of 06. So, yeah, so over a year. That's a lot of outdoor activities in a short period of time. I mean,
yes,
I like the snow, but I don't know. And Jose, he's one of our hosts, and he was saying, that's cold, brother. He said negative 55 is pretty darn cold. He has a show called The Motivated Mindset, and he's on Saturdays, and I believe it's 5 p.m. Eastern, I believe.
Oh yeah. Nice.
So if you were infantry, you weren't, and did you go to airborne school?
Yes, I went to airborne school.
So you didn't jump out in that kind of weather, did you? I mean, like,
oh yeah,
cold. Did
hell
you
yeah,
really?
Hell yeah, we did. Yeah,
really.
Yeah, no, little cold never bothered us anyway. I mean, you know what I mean?
Not. Wow.
We're frozen out there all the time, and we will happily be so. That's just the airborne for you. It doesn't matter what the weather is. We're gonna probably at least try to jump out into it. For example, one time my unit was selected to go to Thailand to go and train the Thai military there in CQB and small unit tactics, and then they would cross train us as well. So they would train us in jungle warfare and survival techniques, and I saw a dude rip apart a snake and have it ready to cook in under 2 minutes. Same thing for a chicken. And from living to ready to cook in 2 minutes.
That's crazy.
I've got the video of it. It's unbelievable. It doesn't even register that it's really happening at that point, just because it looks like, that's what's supposed to happen to it, because he does it so naturally. He's done it thousands of times. It was a special forces instructor in Thailand. And it was really an amazing experience. But the point of jumping, that we jumped into Thailand, we rigged up in Alaska, flew to Thailand, and then jumped into Thailand. So we never actually landed in the plane. We landed when we jumped out and hit the ground.
That's cool and crazy all at the same time. Right.
Yeah. And at that time there was a solid wind advisory that if they decided to go anyway, because that's what the airborne does. And, some people got some injuries, some life-changing injuries that stopped them from deploying with us. And it was all just for a training exercise, but that was my unit. They wanted to step into the as many badass shoes as they possibly could.
Well, that's pretty bad, I would have to say. So I know there's a visibility threshold, and there's got to be a weather threshold as far as the hot and cold extremes before you can jump. Isn't there some kind of like threshold where you won't jump?
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't find it, right?
But I didn't experience it. No, they kept finding ways to allow us to jump. So yeah, there were people there. I had a buddy of mine who did close to 100 jumps in the time that he was in Alaska before he deployed. He was getting himself ready to go and get transferred to the Golden Knights. That was his ultimate goal, was to go to become a Golden Knight. And as soon as in deployment, I saw him in the comms tent, and he told me, "Hey man, I just got approved for the transfer when we get back to start the training for the Golden Knights. I made it." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, dude, it's great. I'm so happy for you." And then the next day he got killed in an ambush on the way to Fallujah.
Oh my gosh.
His name was Jeff
horrible.
Bisson, and he was my best friend from basic training. And
I'm so
it's
sorry.
thank you. Yeah, it's you know, the experience is laden with the stories that are really bittersweet.
Right.
You know? That's a lot of how I've felt about it is you know, bittersweet. There's good and there's bad, but that's, you know, to me, the yin and yang of life. Yeah,
it is, but it isn't always pleasant for sure.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after you got out of the service, what did you do?
So after I got out, I was kind of a wreck after I got out of the service. It was right after deployment. I was looking to go to Minneapolis to go to a music school that no longer exists. But at the time, it was a music school in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I drove from Alaska all the way to Minnesota in a 97 Honda Accord with studded tires. It was
that sounds fun.
It was actually one of the best memories that I have, because I did it in December and the storm was following me the whole way. So I would drive a little bit and I would I left the storm on the first day. And then as I tried to get as far as I could and drove like 12 hours. And then I got there and I'm like, hopefully I'll beat the storm. And I wake up and everything is just covered with snow. The roads, it's like a solid, you know, at least 6 inches everywhere. And then I would get up and drive out past the storm a little bit and then play this catch-up game, you know, for at least 2 or 3 days driving through Canada. But it was at that time, there were still parts of it that were just not paved, that were just completely gravel. And there were still semis driving it as well. And I couldn't believe it.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And one time I will never forget when I was driving through this gigantic storm, and it was at night. And the only way that I could tell that I was on the road was by seeing the horizon in front of me, like way past the trees, and seeing the line get snow kicked up from it in my side view mirror. That's the only way that I actually knew I was on the road. Otherwise, I was driving in clear white snow, and I could have been. Maybe it was a road, maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
Right? Yeah, that's how people get lost. You know, in the winter, and they get off the beaten path because they lose sight of the road. I mean, I was in a whiteout in Hurricane Sandy. They had a whiteout, and I couldn't see the highway. I couldn't see it at all. And, you know, that's pretty big and it's pretty well marked, but I couldn't see it either. And so I can only imagine something that's not very well marked in the first place and not very big. And you're traversing it, trying to remain on your designated path. I can't hardly imagine having to drive in those conditions very far. It wasn't a lot of fun for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was harrowing at the time, but looking back on it, I'm really glad that I did it, because now, you know, driving in the snow is no big deal to me. You know, I feel like not just living in Alaska will do that for you. And
right.
I mean, there was also another time where I did a solid, you know, 360 in the middle of the freeway, you know, when it was super iced over with a battle buddy of mine in the car. And he was like, I am never driving with you anywhere ever again. I'm like, we lived, didn't we? Did you die? But did you die?
But did you die? Right.
It was fun, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fun afterward. You're like, at first you've got nothing but panic going on. And then after that, and you're like, well, that was cool. Yeah. But you don't want to do it again anytime real soon.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, I mean, I actually used a similar mentality that I learned, you know, in the getting yourself over jumping out of a perfectly good aircraft, is you just kind of have to let it up to chance and just accept that right. End, you know? And if you get in that mindset of just acceptance, doesn't matter how horrible it may be, then you can do some pretty crazy stuff, I found, you know?
Right? Like the Army says, embrace the suck.
Yes, exactly. Yes. You guys are familiar with the terms.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Yeah, I did a couple civilian jumps, but it's out of a Cessna and it's nowhere near how, Airborne does it with you. The static line, you hook up, jump out the door and pulls the chute, all that stuff. This
Yeah.
is like you get on they throw open the door, you get out, you put your hands outside the doorway and then you put your foot on the step and your foot's flying 40 knots in the air. You're trying to get it on the step and it's not going. And then the jump master says, okay, reach for the strut of the aircraft. And you're like, what? And she's like, yeah, reach for the strut. So then you're leaning out of the plane, reaching for the strut. And then they're like, okay, so go to the end of the wing. And you're like, what? Go to the end of the wing? I'm like, just trying to hang on here. And you're like doing 40 knots, going back and forth like this. And then finally they're like, are you ready to jump? And you're ready to arch away from the plane? And they're like, yes, I was ready when I first put my foot out the door. So then they're like, arch away. And then you arch away. And then she throws out your chute and then your pilot, and then your chute deploys. But I was like, man, that was scary. I'd rather just jump out the door.
Wow. Yeah. That sounds like a lot. Yeah.
It was. I was like freaked out at first. I was like, do what? Put my foot on the step and then reach my hand out for the strut. So you're leaning all the way out of the plane and nothing's below you. I mean, you've got a parachute on, so that's a good thing, but you're reaching over and then she's like, okay, walk to the end of the wing. What? Walk to the end of the wing? 40 knots like this at 3,000 feet. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite interesting.
That's Tom Cruise stunt territory is what that is. That's
it's something, boy. I went up twice that day and I was like, okay, because if I didn't go up again, I knew I wouldn't go up at all. So I'm like, yeah, put me up a second time. So we did a second jump. And then after that, we were like, okay, we're good. We checked that box.
I can understand that. Yeah. Right. I'd probably do the same thing.
So back to your music career. So you said you were traversing across Canada and the US to get to Minnesota for this music school. And then what happened?
Yeah. So I got there and I went into every school has an audition. So I went to the audition and the teacher who was giving the audition said, why did you even come here? You're not good enough to be here. You only know 2 versions of a pentatonic scale. What's the matter with you? You shouldn't go home, Smalls. Like that was his mentality.
Wow.
He didn't use those words. He tried to use, the music snob words to describe to me how terrible I was. Right. But his mentality is go home, Smalls. And so I went home and I was like, that was really messed up. Like, why did I come all the way down here for that? They told me that I was definitely like a shoe-in, that I definitely get in. So they call me in 2 weeks and they say, why aren't you in classes? And I'm like, because the guy told me to go out, that I wasn't supposed to go there. And he was like, no. And they're like, no, that was just, an intake, that you can still go. And I'm like, no, you guys ruined it. Right. I don't think so. Like, I'm going to keep my GI Bill. We don't play that,
Right.
So then I worked for a solid year and a half or so, about 2 years. Saved up enough to go out to Los Angeles to Musicians Institute, where they did allow me to go in, even though I only knew 2 versions of the pentatonic scale. They said, that's fine. We'll teach you.
See, now that's what you were looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. So then I spent 2009 to 2012 at Musicians Institute, learning guitar performance, independent artist program, which is a combination of marketing, Photoshop, audio engineering. It's learning the basics of everything that you need to market yourself as an artist is really what that program was for. And I did it twice. So then I went to the audio engineering side of the school and I did that program twice as well. And in all of this time, there's, a solid, well, every year you could pick almost as many open counselings as you could possibly go to. Mm-hmm. And as long as you had the schedule to do it, you could go to them. So I tried to do that for as much as I possibly could. And of course, living in Hollywood, you don't have a lot of free time, even if it's only a 10-minute walk from your apartment to school, which it was for me. It's still interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on. And so I lived in Los Angeles. So after 2012, after I graduated, I'd already started working together with two of my friends who I met at MI to make The Quarantined. And it was after, trying to be sideman for a lot of different projects. And all of them ended up in the same inevitable way where, somebody had really great intentions. They had really great songs. They had really good gear. They had, everything that they needed. But they would make terrible choices, So then they would make terrible choices and end up inadvertently destroying the band. And then they would give up and try to start something new and with new people entirely. And that would happen all the time. And it's one of those things where you start to realize that exactly what they had described to me in music school isn't exactly the way it's always going to be. You would have to learn the techniques to help progress your knowledge forward instead of just relying on what they had told you as if it would always be, people can do that with their bachelor's degrees. They learn the things, the principles of economics. And even though if you learned it in the 80s, the same principles of supply and demand still apply. It's just in how you apply them and how you look at them based on the perspective of your business. Well, inevitably, I found that music as a business has to be the same way. There is a aspect of positioning that's very, very important. And I started to realize that looking at the music like a business, and also as yourself as a brand, was a valuable way of operating instead of having a set of musician integrity values that stop you from doing things. There was a lot of purity tests where people would want to only do these shows if they operated in this particular way. And things of that nature, or now, especially what we see is with AI, everybody's deathly afraid of using AI, but you can overuse it. But if you use it as a tool to assist you to get you faster from point A to point B, then it's a tool to be used. It's not a crutch,
Right. Yeah. That can be helpful.
Right. And so like those kinds of things, I tried to learn principles, values, techniques, and the ability to critically think in that environment was really my focus after I learned all of the basic techniques that I needed to play my instrument and to sing along with it.
Well, that's a well-rounded education, because not only did you get the training musically, you got the business end of it too, which is so important, like you say, because if you don't have the business end of it, it doesn't really matter how much talent you have. You're not able to sustain yourself and market yourself and, get yourself out there, because you do have to have both skill sets, or at least somebody with that skill set as part of your group, because that is very important, because you have to know how to read contracts. You have to know how to market yourself and then value what you're producing for your audience. You have to know, what that costs and what it's worth, what your operating costs are, that kind of thing. So if you don't have that part of it, you might be losing out on some money you really need to sustain your organization or your band, your music production, basically.
Absolutely. And I found that, approaching the revenue streams not as I'm going to do exactly what somebody else did, but looking at the revenue stream as a area of operation, like a military person would, and then looking at the different avenues that you can take in that area of operation to accomplish specific goals is a much better plan than just showing up to the area and being like, I'm gonna conquer, and be like, that's enough. And it's not. It's you're going to inevitably lose if you don't know what the actual games that are being played. What are the
Right.
rules? Where can you break them? Where can you give yourself a leg up by doing it yourself? And where can you give yourself a leg up by finding a subject matter expert to guide you?
Yeah.
Which is one of the bigger things. I spent a solid 10 years
Wow.
of getting screwed over by people, managers trying to steal albums, entire albums, people stealing money. There's a unending amount of people who will try their best, maybe with the best intentions to help you, but
Yeah.
sometimes people are trying their best to not have you realize that they're ripping you off.
Right.
And that's a key thing and so this is why I say the most important member of your band is your lawyer, not you, not me, not anybody. The most important member is the lawyer, because they're able to make sure, because a contract can look like a good thing.
Right.
But if you don't understand the details and the context of the basic operation of what the contract is supposed to operate under, like what's the standard operating practices for sync licensing? And if you don't know what the standard operating procedures for sync licensing are, you won't know if the deal you're getting is good or bad.
That's true. I mean, you do have to have representation because they speak the legalese stuff that, nobody wants to delve into. Everybody wants to produce the music and do those things, but reading through all the contracts and knowing exactly what you're signing is sometimes a foreign language if you don't have an interpreter.
Right. Yeah.
So.
So it's become extremely important to me lately, realizing that I can't do everything on my own. Yeah. And I thought for a good long while that I could,
right.
But I realized that doing this with a team that is knowledgeable is way better than trying to figure it all out on your own and only accepting the help that you can see instead of the help that's out there if you look for it. It's a very big difference. Same difference that I try to give to people about, you're not promoting to the people who you already know. They already know you. They're not looking to be promoted to. You have to promote to everybody who you don't know.
True.
That's where marketing and promotion really has its magic, where you can gain new things that you never thought possible. And that's the Rubicon that I'm starting to cross over in the music biz. And it is a totally different world,
Yeah, no, I agree. The two sides, they collide at times, but they're two independent sides of the business. There's the music side, and then there's the operations, like you say. There's all the scheduling, the contracts, the production, making the recordings and putting out the albums and things like that. So yeah, they're two separate things, but they do interchange and collide at times and become one. But then someone's got to manage both sides.
Right. And I was always of the purist mentality. I was very much, I'm going to be a musician, and whatever the business is going on at that point, it's going to be for somebody else. I need to know just enough to get me by, because I don't want to take any time away from learning about music,
right.
or playing it, or doing those interactions, or being on the field. I wanted to be in the field in the same way that I felt in the military. I didn't want to be in garrison. I wanted to be out there doing it,
Yeah.
And I still take that approach, a hands-on kind of thing, but I have learned another important military principle, which is successful delegation.
Yes.
Military does that extremely well.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, but that's a true statement, though, because you want a team so strong that they don't really know who the leader is, because everyone's got their subject matter expertise. They know how to do this or that. And that's how it works, is because everyone comes together with their strengths. Because if everyone had the same strength, things wouldn't go as well, because you need people that have other skill sets that maybe you don't have, and they're very well versed in it. And you make a really good complement to one another, because, you're capitalizing on their strength and not the weakness you don't have, but the strength the other person has.
That's right. Yeah. From, the World War II slogan, diversity is our strength.
Yes.
It is a real thing. And once I started to take that approach to using AI, ChatGPT, to start helping me, especially with the marketing message, because that was something that I knew what the message was. I created it. I knew everything that I wanted to say in the song because I emotionally represented it. That doesn't mean that I put it in a coherent sentence that some regular person can understand. I have to learn how to do that because it's different than just singing the line and expecting someone to get it, Yeah. So that was one of the key things that I used AI to narrow down because I needed an answer right away. I didn't need to sit there and ponder it for months and months and try to figure it out. So using that as a free option to me was extremely valuable. And I hope that musicians who are listening now look into, don't just think of AI as the only thing that will create all of the music that you could never create. Think of it as it can be any title and contribute any amount of work that any title you can think of can do. So when you think of it like that, the world becomes your oyster instead of you always having to fight against it just to get some little scrap that you barely even really need,
Yeah, AI can really help create the message that you want. In other words, like you said, it kind of crafts it in a way that excites people or draws people in, depending upon what you're trying to write about. So it can write emails that are very focused on drawing you in, or it can write, congratulatory emails that are very, so in songs. So it really is helpful, and people just need to kind of give it a chance. I mean, I think there is overuse too, so you need to be careful of that. But I do think it's very beneficial, and it does save a lot of time. It can tell you how to do things or kind of point you in the right direction when you're kind of stumbling or when you've got a block. It will really help.
Yeah. Absolutely. And especially lately, having to really take a lot of a really deep thought into a very large project, because the version to Normalcy was released in November, but I'm going to still continue to promote it out for the next couple of years. Yeah. So it's not just something that, I promote and after 6 months be like, oh, let's move on to the next one. No, it's like, I've got something to say. The messages in it are relevant and they will be timeless as well. And when
that's what you want to do, timeless.
Right. And so when I know that, then I have to give myself the time to go about and do it all in the best way possible. And finding that is extremely difficult, but it's worth it.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. Because some music transcends time and space and genres, actually. So if you write the right lyrics or write the right song and it's evergreen, basically, it doesn't really have an expiration date. That's what you want, because some of the songs that used to be popular back in the day have resurged. There's made a resurgence because they've been added to video games and stuff that the younger group are now listening to. Like it's a brand new song, like they've just hearing it for the first time. So it must be brand new. No, it's 30 years old, but it's timeless. So it still works. It's still relevant. Yeah, because the issues of yesterday are still relevant for the issues of today, even though maybe some of the technology has changed. Issues are still issues. We still have all kinds of similar relationship issues, like social issues, all those things. So as long as you write a song that can transcend some of those leaps in time, then it's going to be relevant no matter what genre or what era it's played back. So speaking of that, what would you classify your music as? And then we'll play Skeleton Chair, and you can tell us about it if you don't mind. But how would you classify your music, and where did you decide you were going to land when it came to being in a particular lane when it come to music?
Oh, it's a great question. So I consider the quarantine to be punk, metal, and grunge, and not necessarily in that order. I leave it that in that vein because I see grunge as straddling the line between always electric and sometimes acoustic, whereas metal is usually, they use an acoustic guitar for an effect or to capture a slower type of feeling. But as far, you don't see a bunch of metal artists up there really jamming on the acoustic guitar. If they did that, you'd be like, this dude is country, right? So there's some that I take from metal, but not everything. And then punk in its attitude, punk in its defiance, and showing the American spirit of individuality, and independence, independence of thought and independence of mind. That's the kind of area where the quarantine is really stationed, to use another pun. But I chose that because of its versatility. I felt like it covered a lot of my ability. But I've also found that I've stepped into like R&B a little bit. I've released a song called One Last Chance that is very much completely out of the quarantined, realm of fastness and, real driven. It's still got a really deep message, but it's much more R&B, and, I really, hold out the singing notes. And so I want it to be, really my goal was to make the quarantine genreless. I knew that I had to make a line somewhere. So I like the way you frame that question, and that when did you decide that was the lane? Because you do have to pick a lane. But I was always of the thing where it's like, I want to be able to do whatever I want,
Right.
But you can't. You have to send it. You have to pick which direction you're going to send Moses down the river. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's left or right. You have to pick one or the other.
There are limits a little bit left and right, but it's still open where you can still traverse this way and that, but there's still an avenue of approach, basically. So
yes. And also, this is the era of rebranding. I could Taylor Swift out, the whole entire thing and just go careening off into alt country just for a throw a wrench for everybody.
Sure. Right.
Now is the era to do that. So I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to stay pretty close to the rock vein. It's just how the music, grunge music speaks to me the most, and metal music has a real closest to my heart because of its aggressiveness, because of its intensity, because of it can talk about, you can get off into like the weird Viking metal that's, totally imaginary, but it makes you feel like, yeah, I'm going to be a Viking. You know what I mean? Like it's going to make you feel like that. But I wanted to just set myself up for using music and not just saying only these ones and nothing else. I learned every technique that I could.
And that, that will pay dividends, for you, because like you said, you can go this way or that way with your music. And then, your supporters or your listeners or your fans will learn to see your diversity and learn to appreciate what you can bring to the table. Because, if you're only in one little niche all the time, it's like, okay, yeah, that's great, but I really like to hear a little bit of something else, mix it up a little bit. So it is nice that you do have that ability to kind of shift focus, maybe temporarily for a song or two, and then back to where you started. But it is nice to have that little bit of diverseness in the music, just to kind of keep it interesting and kind of keep people on their toes and keep them guessing, like, what will he do next? Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so let's play Skeleton Chair, and then you can tell us about it.
Sure.
All right, here we go. And we're back, and we have Sean Martin, and that was his song Skeleton Chair. And I'm feeling sorry for the audience right now, actually, because I was listening to it in the earphones, and the just all the different components are so clear in the headphones, and it's so amazing how they all come together to make that song, because I was really listening to each individual instrument and note and drum beat and vocal, and like it's a symphony in the earphones. And I don't know if everybody got that same symphony as I got, but I was like, I think they're missing out.
Well, I hope not. I hope that they're hearing the symphony. We recorded at a Blackbird Studios, one of the legendary studios. So hopefully it did transfer through their, less than ideal phone speakers, but maybe it did.
Hopefully it did. Hopefully they're listening on Roku or something, and they've got the audio speakers, the sound bar hooked up to their TV and all that, and they're hearing it like we are hearing it. So what was the inspiration behind the song? Where did the thought skeleton chair come from? And what were you thinking when you started writing that one?
Well, I started writing this song after a very intense bout of exposure therapy. Mm-hmm. And it was exposure therapy for this mission that we did in Iraq that started, the mission itself was a very complex operation, but to just give a quick rundown, it was like there was a lot of incidents that created the situation that made the mission necessary. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those things were just little choices that we had made as a unit just because out of necessity, but mm-hmm. It was just a slow burning consequence candle that just kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter until at the end we had to do this kinetic operation that was essentially we were working together with Special Forces and Blackwater to set off an ambush to try and draw out a whole bunch of soldiers who we had intelligence on that they were part of the insurgency. And they were right. There was a whole lot of them. Oh. And it turned into, I don't know how much of the details, but it was a bloody affair. Mm. And it changed my entire awareness of what war could even be.
Yeah.
And also who I was as a human, because I made decisions that inalterably changed the course of my life. And I still, while it ended up having a massive consequence at the end of it, a massive, massive consequence. Yeah. The civilian population took a bad case of A10 fire, and it was Blackwater's fault. And in the end, they still blamed us. So it was really, like a lot of intense emotions. You're going from the highest high that you have. I just, did my job as a combat operator. The thing that I aspire to do the most for the last, 2.5, 3 years of my life. And it's also the lowest low because of the consequences and toll of, actions that it seemed like were just totally innocuous, for months and months back. It was a real like mind twister, man. Like I had to unpack a whole heck of a lot with the therapist to understand, my feelings about everything. And so I started writing this song in capturing the imagery of that entire time. So it starts out with the beginning of the entire saga, which was we accidentally set fire to this field because we were trying to blow up this position that was near our patrol base. Mm-hmm. And we ended up accidentally setting this field on fire. And so that's where the first line comes from. I walked through this field on burning feet, and then later on, you show me you've got no more to bleed out of me. That's the giving everything that you have to this thing that may or may not be appreciative of what you're giving up.
Yeah.
The chorus, do it again, solder my bones to this chair, my friend. So it's the dichotomy of a friend of yours having to do evil to you and you're wanting it. And that's what a lot of times what war feels like.
Yeah.
There's in another life, there is a very real possibility that everybody who you meet in a combat zone could potentially be your friend. There's a reality to the why can't we all just get along kind of thing. There's a reality to that, but at the same time, there's also the harsher reality that that's not the way that it is, that we do have to deal with this in ways that in violent ways. Yeah. And that's the choices that we make in those situations end up defining us as us infantrymen like to call the great crucible of combat. It shows us who we really are.
Right.
So that's what this song was really about, was falling in love with war, this thing that you knew that you probably shouldn't, and it's going to destroy you. But you, at the same time, feel it, and it drives you forward, and it creates your reality, and you still have to resist becoming the monster that you're trying to fight against. And that's a very real problem that I've talked with almost all eras of veterans who have been alive from World War II up to now. And every single one of them has said that exact same thing, that I had to make sure that I didn't become the monster who I was trying to fight against. And by doing this, they had their own prescription to check themselves to make sure that they would still rely on integrity and honesty and honor and self, and making it about service and not about themselves. Like all of those values were the things that they held on to. And that's what this song is about. It's about finding those and losing those and feeling like they may never come back, and maybe you don't want them to, but it's still another crucible. The skeleton chair is really describing the crucible of war.
That's really deep.
Thank you.
I mean, it really is. And you're right. I mean, you're one thing when you're in the uniform and you're doing the job you're paid and you signed an oath to do. And then when you take off that uniform and then you're back with your family, then you have to be somebody else. You can't be that same warrior at that level that went to war or that did the things that you had to do. I mean, so that really is very telling about service and how it impacts your life and how it impacts the lives of others, because like you say, you don't want to let that monster be who you are when you come back. You want that left there on the battlefield, and then you're coming back to who you need to be for yourself and for your family and for those that are waiting for you at home.
Yeah. And there is it's a tenuous give and take.
Yeah.
There is a cost to it. And I felt that cost. And I stood in front of that abyss, having to make that choice of, am I going to continue down this path that I know will inevitably end up with me not being the same? Right. That I am never going to reach the point to where I was back when I started this, thinking I'm still going to be a civilian after this. I want to have a civilian life after this. Well, I came to find out that you join the special forces, you join for life, man. You never stop being a special forces soldier. That's what you are. Like it becomes who you are, more so than just about anything else that you've ever experienced or will experience. And when it was truly and honestly described to me like that, it made me go, I'm not so sure about it anymore.
Right. Maybe
I'll take another step down from that, and maybe that'll be an acceptable level, because I knew that I wanted to have a life after it, but service was extremely important to me.
Yeah. Well, we have about a minute left. Is there anything else you want to put out? I wanted to let you get a chance to get your dates out if you're going to be somewhere, or at least put your social media information out there so people can check you out as far as your music and where you're going to be and what's going on.
Yeah, you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at The Quarantined. You can find us on thequarantined.com. I highly recommend our website. It's got everything on there. All the press articles that we have, all of the social media links, all of the extra discography that is not available on Spotify, and it's only available on Bandcamp right now. So there's a lot of hidden gems in there that I highly recommend. And we're going to be lots of different places, but mainly online. So we're going to have a lot of new online content for you. So stay tuned on our social medias for that.
That sounds great. It's been such an honor to talk to you. I really appreciate you coming on tonight and really explaining how you got to where you are and your music. And, you know, I'm going to be listening because I'm going to see what's going on. So thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Well, this is Tracer Round signing off.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.